Hi, I'm Jason Wachob, founder and CEO of MindBodyGreen, the best-selling author of Wealth, and your host for the MindBodyGreen podcast, where I'll be bringing you deep and insightful dialogues with some of the greatest minds in wellness. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star review, comment, and share with your friends and family. And don't forget to visit us at mindbodygreen.com for your daily dose of wellness. Thanks and enjoy the podcast. Like many people, it's taken me years of experimenting with food, adding ingredients here, cutting them out there to find the perfect diet. I go heavy on the plants, light on the grains, and medium on the healthy fats to feel energized, happy, and alert. And I can find them all on Thrive Market, the largest online marketplace in the country that sells exclusively non-GMO groceries shipped straight to your door. They're offering an amazing deal right now. Get $60 of free organic groceries plus free shipping. Go to thrivemarket.com/mindbodygreen now. Their homepage lets me filter through a wide selection of thousands of products based on my values. I just click a few buttons to shop for their widest assortment of certified organic, non-GMO, paleo-friendly foods out there. I don't know where else I can access my go-to snacks like Simple Mills flourless crackers, pantry staples like pasture-raised ghee, and organic apple cider vinegar, and treats like heavenly organic chocolates, all in one go. I just add my weekly haul to my cart, check out, and get back to my life. Oh, and did I mention that their prices are insane? They cut out the middleman to offer up to 50% off items sold. And now they're giving you an extra $60 in free groceries and free shipping. Just visit thrivemarket.com/mindbodygreen now. So to all of our vegan, gluten-free, and paleo listeners out there, welcome to a new shopping experience that makes it easier than ever to live with specialized diets. Again, check out thrivemarket.com/mindbodygreen for $60 in free groceries. There is no one other place I can go that has such an enormous variety related to the way I eat and the way I live. And I know if it's on Thrive Market, it's going to be good for me and my family.
Hi, it's Colleen here, co-founder and chief brand officer of MindBodyGreen. When we think of beauty here at MBG, empowerment comes to mind. To us and to me personally, the two simply go hand in hand. Milk and Honey is a line of clean, small batch skincare made in Austin, Texas that was founded by lifestyle entrepreneur Alyssa Bear. Milk and Honey is committed to sourcing and using ingredients that are as clean as possible. They choose organic, plant-based above all else and make thoughtful, informed choices on non-toxic synthetic ingredients when organic just isn't possible. One of my favorite factoids about the products is that they are developed with the input of 50 estheticians that work in the Milk and Honey Spa. Each one is tested and approved to make sure they're up to snuff. If you're looking for a product to try, the cream deodorant is a bestseller. We're offering the listeners of MindBodyGreen 25% off your first order on milkandhoney.com. Use code MindBodyGreen25 to redeem. That again is MindBodyGreen25 to get 25% off your first order on milkandhoney.com.
Hey, everybody. I just want to take a quick moment to thank you all for listening to the podcast and to say that we want to listen to you. So if you have any questions, any dream guests, we are all ears and would love to hear from you. So ask me anything and stay tuned for the answers or your dream guests on this very podcast. Send your questions to podcast@mindbodygreen.com. That's podcast@mindbodygreen.com. And I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thanks so much. And let's go back to the podcast. It is such a treat today to have two of my favorite people in the world, people we consider family here at MindBodyGreen, the lovely couple, Julie Piatt and Rich Roll, here on the podcast. We've known Rich and Julie for 8 years, and we've seen our children grow, our brands grow, and wellness grow, for better or for worse, which we'll talk about. They've recently collaborated on an incredible new cookbook, The Plant Power Way Italia, which is a sequel to their first best-selling cookbook, The Plant Power Way. In addition, Rich has written one of my all-time favorite books, Finding Ultra, and Julie's written one of my all-time favorite books with one of my all-time favorite titles, This Cheese is Nuts. Together, Rich and Julie are a tour de force. They are an inspiration. And they are a couple that Colleen and I consider dear, dear friends and family. And that is why today Colleen is joining me for this very special interview as we have Rich and Julie on the podcast. Julie and Rich, welcome.
Thank you.
So good to be here. I'm honored to be back. I feel like I was just here.
You were just
thank
here.
You for having
you're
me
one
back
of
on.
you're one of the select few who's a repeat offender on the MBG podcast.
Well, I'll try not to repeat myself.
Well, it is an honor to have you both here. We've known you guys for 8 years, and which has been amazing, and we're going to talk about. So we thought it was fitting that we'd have the whole unit. So Colleen and I, MindBodyGreen, Rich and Julie together, and getting to this amazing new book, Plant Power Way, Italia, which everyone must buy. I think for me, this journey to the book started. I still had Colleen and I talk about the best vegan meal of our life was in your home in 2012, which, if memory serves, was an Italian meal.
Was it? I can't remember.
It was. I want to say it was lasagna.
I think you made lasagna.
Oh, I made the lasagna from the Plant Power Way.
So we like to think that we played a role in this book.
Well, you have, definitely. You definitely have. You were some of my early tasters. So I remember you guys, it was really fun cooking for you. You enjoyed that meal, and I thought I was onto something, and you gave me some good confirmation. So I'm honored that you remember the meal. That makes me feel
best
really,
vegan meal of
really
our
good.
life. Still,
Totally.
2012, July 2012. Hillary Biscay was there with her Mike, the Iron Man duo.
Yeah.
Well, I think you said that you believe you've played a role in the creation of this book, but it's much larger than that. You've played a role in our life. Like you said, we've known each other for 8 years, and it's been really cool to watch what you guys have created here. It's really something to behold, and it's an honor to be able to kind of be along for the ride that you've created for all of these people.
Yeah, and be a part of the whole, revolution and movement that you guys have created, and all the amazing people that you've connected us with, and the amazing events and Revitalize, and it's just, there's no end to the goodness that's coming out of you two, and then MindBodyGreen as a result.
Oh, thank you so
You
much.
guys are so sweet. Thank you so much. We're going to get all mushy and not get to the important stuff. But this is about you guys, not us. So let's talk about this amazing book and the inspiration for Plant Power Italia.
Yeah, so the Plant Power Way Italia is a coffee table book, and it is the follow-up to the Plant Power Way, which was Rich and my first book. And in the Plant Power Way, we created the book with the intention of inviting the reader to feel as if they could pull up a chair and sit with us at our family table. So
Which is amazing.
Which is really sweet that you guys shared that experience. And so now I feel like the next step was to take this into our communities. What we've done is we've expanded our family to include our community tribe, and we do these extraordinary retreats all over the world, and our favorite location is in Italy at this villa, Isolana, where I used to produce yoga retreats since 1996. So from 1996 to 2003, I produced yoga retreats, and then we went through our famous financial collapse for 9 years. So we were benched for a while. But then when Rich had, Finding Ultra had become so well read and known and celebrated, and his podcast, the Ritual Podcast, and also my podcast, Divine Throughline. So finally we had this community, and I knew that if we went back there with the intention of sharing plant-based cuisine for the week, as well as yoga, transformation, all the, expansion through the different things that we do there, running, yoga, meditation, all these things, that it would truly be something extraordinary. And so what I did is I set out to create the menu for that week. And that's quite a lot of meals because we have 40 people, and it's basically Saturday to Saturday. So I was like, well, that's almost like a third of a book there. So what I did is I started creating, and, Italian cuisine is, I think, some of the most loved food on the planet Earth. And the beauty is that before this book, or kind of simultaneously with this book, I was perfecting plant-based cheese, which I presented in my book last year that was published in June, This Cheese is Nuts. So the beauty of this book now is that I've taken my expertise from the Plant Power Way, which are very family, hearty, creative, delicious food. Like, we're not talking about eating a piece of lettuce here. Like, this is a full culinary experience. And then I've married that with my expertise in plant-based cheese. And what is one of the most important elements in Italian food is the cheese. So I now was able to step into this category of cuisine and really love it and really pay homage to this amazing people and this amazing country and present over 125 recipes of beautiful, plant-based, vibrant Italian cuisine.
What I love about it too is with Italian, it's not a starting place. Most people say for plant-based cuisine, vegan cuisine, most people will be like, oh, Mexican, Indian, like that's the natural place people will go. Like Italian is one that's not easily conquered, if you will. And so no one's really done that. People, it's heavy in cheese, heavy in dairy. Most people are like, oh, I can't do Italian.
Yes, that's true. And it's also, though, one of the most beautiful regions, full of so much beautiful mana from the plants, you know? Because the ingredients, I mean, why is it that Italian food is so delicious? Well, one of the reasons is the love, which Rich and I addressed in our video campaign for this book, the amore of Italians. And, but they really do have pure, beautiful ingredients, you know, all the fresh herbs and lettuces and arugula. And, you know, you've never eaten a tomato until you've eaten a tomato in Italy. So there is a lot there that actually made it very seamless.
And I know it's like choosing between children, but do you have any favorite recipes in the book?
Oh, wow. The eggplant parmigiana is fall down on the floor. There is a walnut porcini sauce that is over a fettuccine that is, it's so rich and has that hearty, warm kind of flavor. I also presented an amazing chocolate orange cake that is with a thick balsamic glaze. And when you see the photo, you're going to be like, oh my God, she's this insane chef. I can never do it. And when you read the directions, it's so easy to do.
You're speaking my language.
It's really, really good. And then, of course, you know, the cheeses in the dishes like lasagna, and we have, you know, an Alfredo sauce. We have arrabbiata. And one of the cool things about this book, too, is that I was able to feature these amazing mushrooms that Mother Nature has given us from the woodlands, which mimic the taste of the sea. And I have to give credit to this amazing mushroom vendor named Dirk. He's the LA fungi. And he was at the farmer's market, and he's a German man who was professionally trained, like highly trained chef. And he took my hand and kind of started introducing me to mushrooms. And he introduced me to king oyster mushrooms, which are featured in this book with a butter sage sauce. And when you slice them, they are exactly like scallops. It's shocking. It's so crazy. Then he also introduced me to lobster mushrooms. Have you ever heard of a lobster mushroom?
No.
I've heard of lobster. And
so
mushrooms,
lobster mushrooms, and when I post this on Instagram, people like they reply and they're like, I'm unfollowing you because, you know, lobster isn't vegan. I'm like, no, it's a lobster mushroom, right? They're actually orange, and if you smell them, they smell like the sea. And there's another mushroom called a chicken mushroom, which I found out that if you cook it without using moisture, it will stay very dry, and you can tear it just like a white chicken breast. It has the same texture. And then another amazing mushroom is a chanterelle, which just has this beautiful flavor to it. So I was able to present some very special recipes in the book. And I know these are specialty mushrooms, but many people all over the world have access to some kind of mushroom supplier. Also, you can order online from Dirk if you're in the US, via Amazon or whatever. But it's something to know. It's very interesting, and it kind of mimics my knowledge that there are many ways to create tastes, and this is what I discovered with his cheeses nuts, by having an open attitude and willingness to receive something different than what you know to be true. You can experience life in a super fulfilling way. And I found this in cuisine, to be able to have these sea tastes, to have a lobster mushroom risotto, the king scallops with the sage butter sauce, and then I did a chanterelle risotto as well, and then with the chicken mushroom I did a lemon piccata sauce over that, and I also offered a tempeh as an option so that if you can do the sauce over a tempeh as well. But anyway, so that was a really fun experience.
So
ahead,
besides mushrooms, if I'm looking to stock my kitchen and pantry with some Plant Power Italia essentials, what are they?
What are they? Plant Power Italia essentials. It would be a really good quality flour. The whole book, much of the book is gluten-free, but not the entire book, because I wanted to have some classic pizza crusts and classic pasta. So if you're not going to be adhering to the gluten-free all the time, I would at least order a really fine quality 00 flour from a specialty mill. You can order a big bag, it'll last you a long time, and it's worth that. But other than that, I mean, aside from the cheeses, there's one specialty ingredient in the fresh mozzarella that is not common, and it's called modified tapioca starch. So let me be clear, that is not GMO starch. It's not genetically modified. It's just modified in the process, and it's used in baking and these kind of things. So that's a specialty ingredient you would have to have. There's, other than that though, you need a bunch of fresh ingredients. So your favorite pasta in a package, if that's what you're going to use for the sauces to, be poured over, or if you're going to make it, you'll use the flour that I just mentioned. But predominantly it's fresh herbs, basil, tomatoes, potatoes, arugula, capers, olives, all the things that we know to be Italian. So it's a pretty fresh book. And the other thing that I want to say is, the one thing that we did discover in collaborating with the chefs at Isolana at the Villa is that the one thing that Italians really don't embrace the same way that those of us in the plant-based community or the wellness community kind of do is the creation of salads. Like, they just don't eat salads like that. And so it's been a blast working with the chefs, and it's been this amazing experience, but that's the one thing that hasn't clicked. So I want to also say that this book has an extraordinary salad section that I'm very, very proud of. And what I did is I took the basics and then just creatively expanded on that and added a lot more ingredients. My minestrone soup is full of greens and herbs, so it's a field green minestrone. It's not a minestrone with no green in it. So this is why Rich and I call this the new evolution of Italian cuisine. It's Italian cuisine 2.0, which is better and still paying tribute to this beautiful people and this beautiful food.
What's your favorite vegetable to work with?
Oh, it's so hard to pick my favorite vegetable. I don't know, but the other thing that I'd like to offer too is, I don't know, I'm 8 years into this journey of being vegan and, living and creating recipes this way. And I did feature some whole foods, like just some whole roasted turnips and Jerusalem artichokes, or a whole eggplant that's just roasted, and then you mix some nut parmesan in it after it's made. Super easy. And the photo's gorgeous. And my publisher was like, well, this isn't really a recipe. But I really felt that we need to return to the fact that, eating a whole food is really amazing. Like, that's really beautiful. So I hope people just prepare a couple recipes and then include a whole food, during the day and in their food experience.
Well, I love that, and done well. That's a lot of great chefs and restaurants that aren't necessarily vegan restaurants or plant-based restaurants are getting back to that. And often it comes back to focus on simple ingredients done well, focusing on sourcing and less of the sauce and the fake stuff. And if you eating a real awesome tomato can be quite amazing. Doesn't need all that stuff.
Definitely.
And that's I think the root of eating a plant-based diet is really focusing on awesome ingredients.
Yeah. And the other thing that I like to just offer is that I'm a mom of 4 and sometimes 5, and I usually have 2 or 3 other people living with me. I'll tell you that later. But I'm really busy. I'm an artist, musician, author. I'm doing many things, and I don't have like if a recipe is too complicated, I'm just not doing that. So all of my books, the recipes are shockingly simple, and my skill is to reduce the ingredients. So like in design, I think early in my design career when I was creating things, you're blocked, so you're over creating, right? You're creating stuff that's just really, and then as we learn, as we become seasoned, the beauty in design and art is really the less is more. It's the simplicity. So within my recipes, and as I embrace food as art and approach this whole expression as art, I'm in the simplicity. And if I can make it less ingredients, I have that's just as beautiful to me as something probably more beautiful to me than something complicated, because I'm trying to offer this tool, this book that can be somebody's guide for their entire family's life, and they can get the foundation and get the inspiration and actually be able to achieve these recipes. I know that even someone who doesn't cook can cook out of my books. And I take great pride in that, because then it's useful. Then it's actually in their family's life and changing everything, actually.
So you both have your individual books, and this is your second book together. So what's that process like, working together on books versus, and how do you, as a couple that works together, we're always intrigued and asking questions. We make it work and we're lucky, but we definitely have moments that are more difficult.
Yeah, it's a dance, right? It's a ballet, and sometimes it's not the most elegant ballet. I would say first and foremost, with respect to the Italia book, that this is really Julie's creation. I mean, my name is on the book, but this was Julie's thing through and through. So I was really kind of in the shadows supporting her, creative talents to create this. But it was really her show with respect to this. But yes, we do work together. We sort of have our own projects. Like I have my podcast, she has her podcast. I go do my thing, and she has her thing, and then we kind of come together in this 1 + 1 = 4 equation from time to time to create something greater than the sum of its parts. And then we kind of go back and do our own thing. So it's been a process of trying to navigate the boundaries of working together professionally and also having a personal life as being, husband and wife and parenting children and all the things that kind of, come with growing a family. And I think, what we've learned, and Julie can probably speak to this much more eloquently than I, is a couple things. I mean, first of all, Julie and I are very different people. We work differently. We have different work habits. We have different ways that we approach what we do professionally. And so it's been a journey of trying to respect each other's processes and not trying to get Julie to work the way that I do, or her trying to get me to work the way that she does. To kind of have those boundaries around that, and also to be clear about when we're working and when we're just having personal time, so that, as when you're passionate about your work, like it will bleed into everything, right? And then suddenly every conversation that you have is just about your professional goals and obligations and logistics and things like that. So I think it's important, and we've been together 20 years. It's been crucial for us to carve out that personal time where it's not about work and it's just about our relationship.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that, I think that the Plant Power Way as a brand that we have created together, it sort of is the family, it's the lifestyle, it's the combination of the energies. So the retreats that we do together, the Plant Power Way retreats, and the books that we do together, it's really the global family and the lifestyle. So it's all of those pieces, and it's rich in my polarity and the opposite extreme that provides such a beautiful experience, because we'll be in workshop and I'll say some spiritual thing, some truth, and Rich will voice like, I have no idea what you just said, and everyone will laugh, but it allows us to to soften and to open up to new possibilities, and then meet together and have this amazing experience.
So there are so many founders and entrepreneurs and wellness leaders that come through these doors. And one of the topics that seems a little polarizing is this concept of work-life balance. What's your take on it? Are there clear boundaries between work and life, or is it more fluid in your world?
It's very fluid in our world. I mean, I think we've been privileged enough, and we burned in the fire for enough years that we earned the ability to create, sort of like play, our life as play, where this is working, being with, some of our best friends in New York City and talking about this beautiful book that we created. So I think it's very much blurred, but I do think that within the relationship and within the family, especially with social media and like everything else, like there are clear boundaries that are necessary to nourish and nurture real life experiences with actually your actual friends, I'm so glad I can physically touch you right now. But the same thing, and with the kids, like we see within our children, like they're actually, some of them are very anti-social media. Like they see it, and they see the imbalance of it, and they don't want to participate in that way. And in addition, Rich and my relationship, we have to schedule romantic time together. Like it has to actually be on the schedule.
Does it get on the calendar?
Yeah, it's like our own
the Google calendar?
Yeah. Our internal calendar, and then
our problem is our calendar is shared with the entire office. So that would be a little.
You need
people
a separate
can see,
calendar.
Wait, it's Jason's book. Wow, you guys are booked. What are you doing?
Yeah. I know. It gets to be, and also when there's so many people around, and you guys have a new baby, so you're in that whole beautiful phase of the biggest
sleep deprivation.
Sleep deprivation coupled with the biggest love affair of your life.
Totally.
It's absolutely, the most beautiful thing in life. But what I would say is what keeps us, first of all, podcasting together has been super healing and amazing for us. So I encourage you guys to keep this up, just even between you two. It's really interesting because you go and you sit down and turn on the mic and you have this intimate conversation, because we talk we share very intimately. So we had a conversation. We were actually in the bed in our hotel room yesterday with mics, and we were doing our podcast for the book, but we ended up talking about these very deep relationship issues and very, very vulnerable things, so that's our style. That has enhanced our relationship. Because we actually get a lot out of it. We're not just doing an act for everybody else. We kind of share at this very deep place and then allow it to ripple out. But I would say scheduling time for your beloved during your marriage is essential. And you have to treat your relationship as important as any other creative project. Because if you don't fuel that, when you have a baby, all you're doing is looking at the baby. Always. All eyes on the baby. Always. And I had 4, so I get that. You have to stop and you have to go and have your own relationship, because if the parents aren't together well, then that's going to affect her. So she, in her ultimate self, she wants you to be together and have this time together. So I really encourage that experience for parents, for couples, for sure.
Yeah, I would agree with the fluid aspect of how we kind of navigate this, work-life equation. I'm not a fan of balance in general. I don't really know what that means. Like, what is work-life balance, and is there actually anybody who achieves that or is living that on a day-to-day basis? Like, I'm much more. I don't. Not only do I not know what that word means, I think it's the wrong word. Like, we would be better off thinking about how engaged we are, how purposeful we are in what we do, how much fulfillment we're getting from our work and from our personal life, and trying to kind of navigate the relationship between personal and professional from that perspective. I'm somebody who I don't do well when everything has to be equally apportioned. I do my best work and I'm the best version of who I am when I immerse myself in something that really fulfills me, whether that's an athletic endeavor or writing a book or any of the number of things that I do. I like to go all in and sort of put the blinders on. And of course you have to come out of that, and that pendulum has to swing back so that you're, always kind of finding your footing and making sure that you are paying attention to the most important things. But I think my version of work-life balance probably looks a little bit different than other people.
But do you think it's true for most people who are successful, however they measure successful, that's probably the same. Like, I don't know anyone who's really successful, and whoever we're defining that, who just turns it on for an hour a day and
Listen,
then turns
if you're
it off.
if you're Elon Musk or you're Steve Jobs, like you know, what is work-life balance? Like, they're obsessed, right?
Yep.
Like, so I think there's, you know, it's not politically correct to say this, but the truth is, if you want to achieve something great, then that's going to place demands on your attention and your focus that are going to exceed, you know, what the average person is either capable of or willing to commit to.
Yes, and that's very true. And within that, if we can't find a way to allow for space for us within that obsession or within that focus, then this relationship will suffer. It will suffer because it needs to be treated as a beloved expression, because it is. It's a garden. It's a garden of another kind. Maybe the beauty with Rich and I is that we're both very independent, and I never needed him to be home every day or in any kind of schedule. I'm very unconventional. So as long as I'm having, like, I can meet him twice a month, and it can be amazing, and that's fine. I don't need to see him for the rest of the month. That's good for me.
Right. Although we work together, it's not like we're sitting next to each
No.
other all day
Right.
long. Like, that would make both of us crazy, I think.
We're at different sides of the office. Got a full 25
guys
guys
worked
between
it out.
us.
So how do you guys do it?
We're still learning.
It's a work in progress.
It's definitely a work in progress. And I think, you know, in terms of the balance equation, I definitely agree with you. And I thought it was something that was possible, and I've come to realize it's not possible. And the way I approach it personally, and I'll let Colleen speak for herself, is this idea of, maybe not the best metaphor, but, you know, knowing where the ledge is for you and going to the ledge, but not falling off, and just being really aware of what that looks like for you, and being aware of, okay, I'm going to the ledge, but not falling off, and just really being, it comes down to awareness. And how do you, for me, like, how do you get awareness? It's things like meditation, yoga, eating right. To me, those wellness is essential, I think, for me as an entrepreneur or CEO. Otherwise, I see how people go insane. Mm-hmm. And for me,
And also, being in wellness, you have to walk your talk. You can't be unwell and run this company.
Absolutely. And I've gotten to points where it's like on the border, it's like, fuck, I need to take care of myself and like making all these other people better, but what about me? And I think it's that balance. And to me, it's like an essential, where if you're not doing this stuff right, you're not going to be in tune, you're not going to be aware, you're not going to be as productive as you can be, and you're not going to be able to sleep at night. And it's like, to me, it's like what makes all of this possible. But getting to that limit, but being aware of, I'm close to the limit, I need to dial it back, or we really need to not work this weekend, or get away, or really need time for yoga. It's non-negotiable this time, period.
I think an important component in that equation is being kind to yourself and being gentle on yourself, because I think when you walk around thinking about work-life balance and how you're failing to live up to, you know, some idealized version of what that is, or what you imagine or project, you know, on other people, like, well, they seem to have it figured out, then you end up feeling bad because you're not meeting that mark, and I don't think that serves people as well.
Yeah, I think the wellness world gives us lots of lofty expectations that aren't realistic about what work-life balance and self-care should look like. And I think when you are so passionate and so committed and are leading teams that are working really hard, wellness projects something that isn't really attainable and isn't going to get you where you want to go. I don't take 45-minute baths. I don't get to go to hour and a half yoga classes, 3 times a week. And I think it's really about thinking, okay, stop. Before there was all of this wellness, what did people do to tune into themselves? And, and for me, what wellness looks like is actually being able to plan a week of meals on a Sunday and know that I've taken care of how I'm going to eat for the week. It means going on a walk with my child. What may have been a 45-minute or an hour-long boutique fitness workout in my 20s, that's what working out means to me now, is getting time with Ellie, and maybe it's on a stroller going on a walk around Dumbo. Mm-hmm. So I think there's just a lot of expectations put on women and leaders in general of what that should look like. And I always like to have a reality check of what actually works.
Right. I mean, you look on Instagram and you see these idealized versions of habits or the 2-hour morning routine, it's well, you do it for a day and then you fall off and then you feel bad about yourself and then you see what other people are doing and you feel like you should be doing that. And that's, kind of what I'm saying is you have to be fluid and gentle and flexible.
Yeah, and there's sometimes you may have time for that and awesome, and then there's sometimes you may have time for, sneaking away 4 or 5 minutes to meditate, and that's all you have time for, and that's cool too.
So some of the words that come to mind when I think of you guys: authenticity, vulnerability, and when I look at you guys and something we've gone through personally in our journey is, there have been times where the financial outlook has not been great for us, and those were very tough times in our relationship, and I've always admired the way you guys were so open about that. And Finding Ultra, the updated version, which you must get, you talk about that in more detail, but just share a little bit about what that looked like and how you got through it. And I think, finance is a weird thing in wellness, and people have various thoughts about what that looks like, and something I've always admired. You've been open about it, and you've, in a way which I think a lot of people needed to hear. And for us, it was wow, they went through this and they got through it. We can do this. And just talk about what that looked like and how you approached it too, because as you mentioned, you guys, different outlooks, you're aligned in so many ways, and you're 1 + 1 = 4, but 2 different approaches.
Completely.
Yeah.
2 different approaches. Yeah. Well, it's, let's see. So I've always been a person that believed that all of our answers for our life fulfillment exists within our own hearts. And I've always been a natural entrepreneur since I was little, and I had a fashion company. I was a fashion manufacturer. And when I met Rich, he was newly sober and struggling with, reconciling his recovery, also working in a profession that he actually hated. He was a lawyer. He was very smart. He went to Stanford and Cornell, and he was very, very intelligent. But the profession was counter to the design of his heart. And so he was giving the universe mixed messages like, yes, I want you. No, I don't. Please give me a love job. No, I hate you. So, and he wasn't consciously doing that, but that's really the energy. So the law career was never really happening. It wasn't really working for him. It was a big struggle all the time. And when we met and got together, we got together, and I'm this crazy, wild, free hippie.
Maha Yoga.
Yeah, and I'm Maha Yoga. I'm
that's right.
I'm live your dreams. This is your life. Let's create something. And so in those early days, I had a vision. I had a website and a company called Jai Lifestyle. It was a lifestyle. And I was doing interior design. And then I also had a community that was called Jai Tribe, and we were doing kirtan in our teepee, and having events and spiritual workshops, and what else did I have? Oh, and then I was doing the retreats, Jai Yoga. So the reason I picked Jai was that Jai is an expression of victory or hail or praise, and I love the 3 letters, and it's such a great brand. It's such a great marketing name. But what was the purpose of our life? We wanted to live a victorious life. And a victorious life means that you fulfilled your divine design, whatever your blueprint is that exists within your heart. So I came to a point in that journey where I had this lip service, and I kind of, I felt like I had some really good ideas in wellness. It wasn't called wellness then, but I had some really good ideas.
You guys were so early. What this is late 90s?
Yeah, late 90s.
Yeah,
late
I
90s.
love it.
And, and I knew what I wanted to do, and I had conviction, and I had vision for my dreams. And we were married in front of our house, in front of 300 of our friends, in one of the most glorious days of my entire life. And I've been married 3 times. Rich is my 3rd marriage. And it wasn't, every wedding wasn't like that, but this was literally, it was a spiritual world concert. We had gospel singers. Bhagavan Das did a Vedic fire ceremony. One of my best visions was him walking on the deck next to my Republican father, half naked. And then,
we just watched Wild Wild Country on Netflix.
Oh, I did too. Yeah. We have to do a whole podcast on that. Please. So anyway, so here we had started our new life together. I was 4 months pregnant with our first daughter. I had 2 children from a previous marriage, Tyler and Trapper, who you guys know. And I wanted this dream for myself, and I wanted this dream for my husband. And so I don't know why or how, but I felt resolved and completely aligned to support us both to visualize that dream. And that was this extreme faith that carried us through the entire financial dismantling of our life. Now, at that time when we got married, there was all promise. We had everything going for us. There was no reason that everything wouldn't click in and we wouldn't just rise. And instead, we went through a complete financial collapse, which literally was an alchemical fire. It was a process of friction, which created a tension, which then results in the alchemy. That's how you turn a metal into gold. And so I knew during this process that we were being taken through this experience so that we could have the energetic truth to be able to be the way showers that we are becoming, that we've become and we are becoming. Because when you go through an experience of dismantling, there is nothing you can do to stop it. We could have sent out thousands of resumes. There was no energy. You can feel it. The energy's off. It's turned off. We had 4 kids, and I knew that the way through was for Rich to do what he loved. Well, what did he love as a child? He loved athletics. That was his love. That was his nirvana. So I encouraged him to return to athletics, which makes no sense, mind you. He's in his 40s already. He's not going to be fastest at anything. He's not going to win anything, for sure, right? I don't know how. It was a knowing that was in my cells. It was a spiritual conviction and a knowing where your mind would tell you, you've got 4 kids. I gave birth to another daughter, our 4th daughter, and he was, most people would say, go get a job. You go get a law job and you put food on the table. And I was like, no, don't do that. I said, you train first. You see to me and the children second. And if a law job just drops in your lap, then you can service it, but with neutrality, no connection to it. Because when you're going through a dismantle, if you're waking up to your spiritual presence, if you choose something that's out of alignment with your being because you're afraid of money, then it will mirror that experience of fear back on you. So what would have happened is we would have been in lawsuits. Like, your soul is saying no. Your soul is saying, wake up. This is your life. So I have to admit, I didn't think it would take that long. And, the thing that was working for me was music. So I created this. I became a musician with my 2 boys between the ages of 8 and 10 for a 7-year process. And we recorded 2 albums together, which for me as a mother, that was enough for me to take a body for. I don't need another experience of my life than those 2 albums with my boys. That was how beautiful it was. And Rich was training. And neither one of those things were making any money at all. Yeah. And so there was a lot of ceremony. There was a lot of ritual. Rich was, tortured by the whole experience. I mean, he really, had a lot of conflict within him as a man. And we were at a point. I mean, I remember one time we actually were in Starbucks and we broke down sobbing, like in public. We were totally wrenched. And we were like, we're either going to realize all of our dreams or be completely annihilated, and none of it will have mattered. And we had to get a point, even within the dream, that we were still willing for that outcome. We didn't get the net. We didn't get to have the knowing. And we had to give it over again and again and again and again. And then I was like, maybe no one needs to hear my music. I thought it was really special, and it was special to me. But maybe nobody needs. Maybe it's really insignificant. Maybe it's not significant at all. But it's not for me to say, so, Mother, I give it to you. I give it back to you. And this is the depth of the experience that we went through that has created this scene, this movie, this illusion of romance, or whatever it is we're discovering together in this specific way for us.
Wow. So what was it like for you, Rich?
It was really hard.
I have so many, because how do you, everything, like I'm just nodding, yes. But I also realize when you're in the thick of shit, looking back, looking at fate, God, divine, whatever you want to call it, like it all seems, and generally life I think is like that. Everything makes sense. Although sometimes there are things that are just awful and makes no sense. You just kind of like have to store that, at least how I process things. But it's so hard. Faith is one of those things. It's so easy when things are going great. But when you're in like the shit and you're in the foxhole, like it's
incredibly
hard.
disorienting and at times terrifying. I mean, first of all, I would say I never would have made it without Julie's conviction, because left to my own devices, I would have gone and gotten a law job. And there were many moments of feeling emasculated as sort of the quote unquote, sort of man in the house who shoulders these expectations of, what that entails as a father, as a husband, and being unable to fulfill that role was very challenging and very difficult. And I think what it did, it is funny because you look back now and it looks like it all lined up perfectly, like it all makes sense.
It's all part of the plan.
And it all and you compress that time period where it looks like it happened, much more quickly than it did. But there were many years of questioning and unknowing. And I think what it did was it forced us to really live in the moment, to like be just completely present with what we're doing. And I would like to say that, every night I went to bed terrified, like what's going to happen, anxiety ridden, but we kind of acclimated to it. Like, and then it's like a normal thing to like be like living on almost no money. And we would go to bed like, all right, well, what's going to happen tomorrow? Like Julie's whole thing was like, let's make it a game. Like this is like Monopoly, right? Like let's make it like a board game
that I want to produce. That's for being financially destroyed, basically, and it's a game.
And I think, ultimately it was a situation that could have blown us apart as a couple. It could have destroyed our family, but somehow it drew us together. And there were ramifications for the children, and the kids had to go through things that, when I look back on it, part of me, wishes I could have spared them from that. But I think ultimately it drew us closer to our children, and it also gave them some pretty valuable life lessons about, the fact that, if you have a dream, what it takes, to fulfill that dream, the level of conviction and faith and commitment required to see that through. And it kind of shattered this notion of entitlement that I think is problematic in our culture right now.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say too that as parents, of course, we just want to save our children from every single fall, every single bruise, scrape, and we want to give them everything. However, that is not the solution to a happy, globally integrated child, And as I look back on it, it was in those moments. I mean, we had one Christmas, we had no money. And so we formed teams and we said, you can only spend $20. So this team go away, that team go away. And on Christmas Day, you're going to present whatever you're going to present. And that year, I called my friend, Kat Vogel, who was an editor, and she came over with a camera, and Trapper wrote this piece it was a spoof on spiritual teachers where he like dressed up like Eckhart Tolle, and he dressed up like Swami Nityananda.
He was like 10.
He was 10. Oh my God. And so we shot the whole thing and then she edited it for me. And Christmas, Rich had done, like, I think they got like, some old long underwear.
We went and bought like t-shirts, like Hanes t-shirts, and painted them. Like we just made it, everything was creative. Like everything was like an art project.
Yeah. So like Christmas morning, they came down and we played that video. I mean, that was still one of the most fun Christmases we've ever had. And I had another experience, which was it's just hilariously crazy. It was my daughter's 6th birthday, and I had no money. And I was used to sort of like flowing with the flow. So it's like I got up and Mathis was like, it's Jaya's birthday. And I was like, it is. And I go, so I think we're going to push it. Like I think we're going to, because I'm waiting for the float, right? I'm like, I think we're going to celebrate that like Wednesday, because I was hoping something was going to come in. And Mathis looked at me and she's like, it's her birthday. And I looked at her and I go, you're right. I go, come with me. So I went in my closet and like got into some old stuff and found like a piece of silver or something, looked up a pawn shop, drove down with Mathis to the corner. This is like in like Calabasas, right? So I go cruising in there with my lot, you know, and I'd never done this before. I didn't kind of know how it went, but I was like, well, let's go check it out. So I go in there and we sit down and the guy takes the solution and he's like, you know, he paints it on so you can see what it is, right? So she's watching. I'm thinking this is a great homeschooling opportunity. Look at what she's learning.
Practical skills.
It's all perspective. I mean, everything's perspective. So then we left, like, I don't know, 15 minutes later was $630, which
Wow.
obviously, like, whatever I took in there was something valuable, a lot more valuable than I got. And Mathis was like, oh, I'm so relieved. She goes, I thought we were going to have to sit in there all day until somebody bought it from us. And so, you know, we went from there. We went and were able to buy food. I made a beautiful cake, like a train cake, and we invited her little stuffed animals to the party. And it was just the boys and just Harry and just our family. And again, and I had money to spare, so I had groceries for the week. It was one of the most beautiful birthdays ever. Like, she was ecstatic, you know? So these are the type of things, and throughout the Dismantle, this is what Divine Throughline, my podcast, is about. It's spiritual musings on how to live life divine. And the reason it is because nothing means anything except the meaning you give it. And so, as Swami Vidyadishananda told me, he's like, yeah, you went through financial collapse. He goes, but you took it as a spiritual challenge. And I go, you're right, I did. My thing was, this experience is happening and I can't control what's happening, but I can control who I am in the face of what that happens. So when the car repo guy came to get my car, I sat down with him and like offered him a cup of tea and asked him his name and asked him if he had kids. He was completely freaked out. Like, what is going on? But I was like, I'm not going to let you take my humanity in this moment. It's a stupid car. Like, who cares? You know, I had 5 Volvos with that company. And I went when I had a hard time and begged them to like change the payment or help me. And they just were like, screw off, you know? So I had a bank account. Like, I had over 700 credit score, like 750 or something. I don't even know if that's good anymore because we don't use credit anymore. We live on cash. But at the time, you know, I went in there and I'd been a customer of them for so many years, and they wouldn't even reverse an overdraft charge so that I could keep my account open. So it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to brutalize yourself when there are people that are very successful in the money game, that are involved in very imbalanced practices that are not honest at all? And then you have most people that are really trying to do the right thing or trying to be honest or trying to pay their bills. And we're judging ourselves like very violently, where, you know, someone like Donald Trump can just file bankruptcy every other day and nobody cares.
I think they're starting to care.
They maybe care. We hope. But, you know, who knows? So the point is, it's the perspective gives you the freedom. And so I kept telling everybody, like, I'm not a loser. I'm in my sacred moment. Like, we are being spiritually prepared to hold the vibration for this greater message. And of course, everyone thought I was completely insane.
A lot of blank looks. Yeah, like, I mean, that was the one thing that was really challenging to navigate, was the judgment and the concern of others who were like looking upon us like, what are you guys
Especially
doing?
in Calabasas.
Yeah, and like we're, you know, and we're living in this beautiful home that we can't pay for. So like from outward appearances, it sort of looked like we had it together, but we didn't. And it was, you know, it was really tricky and challenging.
But you got through it.
We got through it. And like, it's amazing now. But we got through it because of that deep conviction and that quickening of faith and that sense that like that commitment to the journey of really engaging the heart on the deepest level, to be unwavering in our relationship to, you know, what got us excited and out of bed in the morning.
So you mentioned journey. The journey of wellness has come a long way since we first met you in 2010. So on this journey of wellness, what are some of the good things that you think are amazing that you've seen in this journey, and what are some of the things that you think, wow, we still need a lot of work there?
It's a super exciting time. I mean, to see this explosion of interest in wellness just is so encouraging and makes me very optimistic about the future. There's so much happening just in business, in awareness, with podcasts and books, and the level of you know, people's commitment to living more sustainably, to treating their bodies right. Like, I've never experienced such a level of interest in these things that obviously all of us care about. And I think that's super exciting, from venture capital firms and people like Bill Gates investing in plant-based foods, and people, the smartest people in the world who are committed to trying to figure out how we can get clean water to everybody, and how are we going to feed 10 billion people on the horizon, and how are we going to create clean energy. All of these things I think are quite amazing. And like I said, give me hope and make me optimistic. I think, on the flip side of that, what I've noticed that gives me pause and gives me concern is the kind of the siloing of information. Like, there's a conversation in wellness, particularly around diet and nutrition, that mimics the political dialogue that we're seeing right now, where we have these camps who are very entrenched in their point of views and get very emotional about their perspective on how one should live and eat, etc. And I that disheartens me. I don't think it's productive, and I don't know what the solution to that is. And I often struggle with how I communicate around those ideas. But it's something I think we need to talk about and try to figure out a way to kind of unite, because ultimately I think we all agree on the larger points of living healthy and living more sustainably, and we care about our bodies and we care about the animals and the planet and all of these things. So how can we come together to create solutions that bring us together rather than splinter us into these factions?
Yeah, and I would just add to that. I mean, for me, in the spiritual sense, I'm finding, as a humanity's race, as a species or as a collective, that we are very disconnected from our own beings. We have all this external view. We're looking out at everyone else. And there's a lot of assessment and judgment of other people, other things outside. And in my experience, the only place the solution is existing is within the own heart of the individual. And in the wake of the Me Too movement and what's coming, what's changing and what's coming to light, I have discovered that we don't know how to advocate for ourselves, women especially, or feminine identified men. And there's a lot of transformation, healing, triumph, miracles that are existing within the heart. If we can take the focus, and when we see something that's out of balance, look within our own selves to locate maybe a reflection of that, or where we're in balance within our own hearts. Understanding that everybody is on their own journey in their own time, and to cultivate an attitude of unconditional love and acceptance and respect for where everybody is along that timeline. And if you can cultivate your own connection and your own relationship, your own beloved relationship with yourself, then your life will be an example of transformation for other people. And when they see you, something within you will wake something up in them. But because you've been so self-directed and honest with your own flaws, they'll feel very good sitting next to you. Like, they'll come sit next to you and it'll feel safe for them. If we've created a lot of outward projection of this is right and this is wrong and this is the ultimate truth, that creates a boundary, a barrier, a separation. It's really, if you feel into it, it's really a violence, because it's saying, I'm going to separate from you, or I am other than you. And life is so multifaceted in so many different configurations. And, I choose and I thrive and my family thrives, and I feel predominantly a plant-based or plant-rich diet is very, very helpful to your own body, to your spiritual energy, and also to the planet, and of course, animals, which are sentient living beings. Within that, there are many different iterations and life forms that will need different things at different times of their life. So it's not a one size fits all. It's so individual that it's beyond standardization. You can't say one thing is good for all people all the time. In, advanced Ayurveda or Tantra, you say, well, are potatoes good? And the answer is for whom and when.
Right.
So it matters who you are, what are you doing, where do you live, how old are you, what's going on in your life, what is your mission about? It's just, it's beyond imagination.
Yeah, there's not a one-size-fits-all approach that works for everything. And what, Rich, you were saying really resonated in that so much of this wellness dialogue focuses on the difference and not the common ground of which we can all agree on, and that's something that needs to change.
Also, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to add, and Jason, I think we talked about this last time on this issue of separation and common ground. Another thing that we really need to talk about, and I know this is a new kind of mission statement for Mind Body Green, is overcoming this idea that wellness is the purview of the well-heeled elite. This is not an elitist ideal. We need to really expand the conversation and the perspectives around wellness, diet, nutrition, all of these issues, environmentalism, so that they are available and accessible to all people. Right now we have this incredibly stratified, culture in which, far too many people are living in food deserts. They don't have access to the healthy foods. They're living at a subsistence level. And this is highly problematic. So when we're talking about wellness, it's not about whole foods and superfoods. It's about
food, water, and shelter.
How do we just provide people with the basic requirements so that they can sidestep the chronic ailments that are killing millions of people unnecessarily every year? And until we solve that problem, I think that we have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and the other thing that you hit on, Julie, is how spirituality fits into all of this. So we've come so far, diet, nutrition, I can do DNA testing, microbiome, personalization. Oh my God, I eat this, I eat that. I can do, everything's like measured and quantified. And some of that's exciting. But also what worries me, and something that I have to keep track of too, is like the spiritual journey. And you use words like energy, consciousness, things that can't maybe be measured, and their role in life. Because why are we doing what we're doing anyway? Like, why are you trying to eat healthy? Why are you trying to, like, the bigger why, and where does this fit in?
What are you quantifying yourself
right,
for?
And being comfortable with when everything is known and everything there's instant gratification, dealing with the unknown and embracing the unknown and the journey. That's something I worry a bit, I have to watch personally, and I think in wellness, that doesn't show up on Instagram. The journey doesn't show up on Instagram.
Right. Well, we're changing that, hopefully. me and Shaman Durek are hopefully changing that. But no, yeah, that's very, very true. And the kind of ridiculousness, if we want to just laugh at ourselves a little bit, which we do need humor and laugh. We got to lighten up. We got to have fun and celebrate. We're alive. We're alive on planet Earth. It's like an unprecedented moment in history. Like what are we going to see in our lifetime? And what an honor and a privilege. But the thing is, it's like no diet is going to stop your death, or like it's not it's not like a pill for immortality or to just be awesome for eternity. So it's just a click of like starting to understand your body as a divine instrument. It's a mechanism. It's actually like the most valuable piece of technology that you have is your own being. So I say that your most sustainable ecosystem, the ultimate green, is this human body that's sitting here. And this is the other level of this. I'm teaching this retreat called Beloved this year that's like about falling in love with yourself, because if we really understood that this was a machine that houses our spiritual being, then we think about what are you putting in that. It's like it gives it a little bit more of a focus and a clarity with that. And we are spiritual beings having a human experience. I did a podcast yesterday, and I was saying we shouldn't be apologizing for that. Like, we don't have to apologize for the fact that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And it's time that we stop being so one-sided that we're only looking at the masculine principle or the linear principle of like, well, 2 + 2 = 4. But there's another truth. 2 plus 2 also equals 22. So where do you want to live? I live in the 2 plus 2 equals 22.
Yes.
Right?
Which
I do.
makes for, it's interesting when you live with her and 2 plus 2 equals 22, like all the time.
But the thing is it's like, and Rich and I were talking this on the podcast that we did yesterday, okay, so I have my own Me Too story. I am absolutely ecstatic that this is being talked about, and that this totally low vibration program that's been running on this planet is being brought up. I'm like, right on. And women need to be heard, and there needs to be a moment of that, because it's more than a moment, like as much as we need. However, the truth of the matter is within us exists both energies. We are both masculine and feminine within our own selves. And the solution isn't to then, kill the men, It's like, it can't swing that far. And I just want to say, again, I love men. I mean, I love masculine energy. We need it. It holds a structure for us, for the feminine energy. And so as somebody who's a spiritually inclined person, we're looking always to cultivate that masculine feminine within yourself. And so if you understand that you are both of those energies, it can never exist separately, there's nothing to fight against. Like, the solution isn't to then go attack the other side. I mean, the solution is to integrate and to really look within ourselves where we have been dishonoring to the feminine energy. Look in your own practices, your own business practices, your own personal, even your thoughts. Like I use the example, like all bad drivers are women, or something that you think in your head that you don't even know where you got it. It just got implanted. So diet and wellness is about these tools and this experience, about finding a way to clear out the stuff that isn't yours, and refine your relationship with yourself so that you can hear these subtle whisperings that come from the unseen. And the unseen part of life has masculine and feminine energies. Both are needed. So the problem with the world is that the world has only been honoring the male perspective. And that's just not true creation. That's not true. And I will use the words, that's not balanced. Because a true balance, and Ayurveda is about balance, it's a unique prescription for cultivating this relationship with your own self, with planet Earth, our mother, and this cosmic realm that we're in. So we have the universe existing within our own hearts. Every potential is within each one of us. So the only time, if anything shows up in your life that is challenging you or seems like a violence or a wrong or anything, all the solution is inside your own heart. That's all it is. So whatever the tools are that help people get to that connection, that's where we're going to see these quantum solutions. We need quantum solutions for what we're facing now, right? I mean, Paul Hawkins, my favorite.
He'll be back and revitalize.
No, thank you so much. What an amazing individual. Thank you for introducing us to him. I don't know him personally. I did meet him quickly, but I love what he's presenting. But we're going to need quantum solutions, and that's going to come in the form of our kids. And young parents need to understand that we need to embrace that they have a multidimensional potential, and we don't need to put them into a system that is obsolete, that is designed to make them into a widget. So,
Well, one of the things that we've always admired about the family you guys have created is, with 4 beautiful children, it does seem like they're all so in tune and tapped into their gifts and their purpose. And I'm sure it was really easy, and it just happened that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there was no work involved.
How do we do it? What do we do with we've got a 15-month-old daughter. What advice do you have? How do you do it?
Well, I'm gonna defer to Julie on this, but I think I will say this. Part of our message, a big part of our message is, how do you connect and express your most authentic self? How can you be as self-actualized, as fully expressed as you possibly can be? How can you connect with your heart and live your life in full expression of what moves you in that way? And if that's our message, and if that's the way Julie and I have decided to live our lives, then we can't create an expectation on our children other than that, right? So it's been about trying to support our children. First of all, respecting them as sentient, independent human beings, treating them as such, and then trying to create support systems around each one of them to help them connect with their own hearts in their specific ways. And then when they kind of gravitate towards something, some kind of interest, our job is to like move in and support that. And that interest may not be the interest we would choose for them. It's not about that. It's about respecting what they're naturally moving towards and then filling that void to then kind of elevate them so that they can, really embrace whatever that interest is. And when they're kids, it'll be that for a minute, and then it'll move on to the next thing or whatever. And you just do that in a neutral way.
That's what's so cool about the baby stage is you can just see Ellie moving into places where she just gets happy, and you see it so young, which is so cool.
But then, so I have a real world question, and I want to hear your answer.
Can I answer the other one
yes,
first?
absolutely.
I
want you to help us with the problem we have right now with Ellie.
No, for sure. Let's do that. But I think what would be great is to you could talk about Mathis because it relates to Jason and Colleen's relationship with her.
A couple things that I'd like to share with parents because I had two older kids that went to private school, and then they ended up moving to public school, financially motivated. And then they went to 1 year of high school and they opted to come home and homeschool. Both artists, both very well read, you guys would know, very personable, very easy to talk to people. Like they're very
great kids.
Yeah, very, very, very balanced beings. But they found the high school environment very violent and not safe for them. So I found out after their freshman year that they did not share with anybody at school that they were musicians because their choice of music wasn't the popular one of the most popular kids in school. And they felt that there was this very narrow path that you could walk down, and if you were outside of that path, that it was you were in danger of like being ridiculed or at a greater level, bullied or whatever. And that really struck me deeply because as an artist, as a child and a kid in your years, like you just want them to be free in creating. So they came home and they did a hybrid thing, and that was their experience at school. But with Rich and my girls, I made the decision, or I would say they made the decision, because they came in with completely different wiring than anything I'd ever seen. And so they didn't fit into any box. Mathis was the first. And things that had worked for my boys just didn't work for her. So I had to literally throw out all my knowing of being a parent and just start fresh. And what I've learned through my 8 years of unschooling and creating a community homeschool, that I tried to launch this whole movement, which I failed up a few times, but I did homeschool with another 2 families for 1 year. We had 7 kids and a rescue dog, ages 4 to 13. And the focus was on food, gluten-free, vegan, plant-based food. One of the children was autistic. None of the kids saw that child as autistic, nor labeled him as autistic. He was just who he was. It had no label. And they rescued this puppy and healed this puppy basically from the brink of death into wellness. We did a lot of meditating. We didn't do a lot of academia. And Rich would come home and say, like, what happened today? And we were like, well, we meditated and we made food. But I want to tell you that the biggest pain that we have in the culture is a hurt of self-esteem, a pain or a violence of our own self-esteem. And then as parents, when we have kids, we want to make sure that our child never suffers that same pain. So we project our stuff onto the kids, and we mirror our experience. Like, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that my kid never, ever, has that experience. And what I would say to us is that it is not your child's responsibility to work out your unresolved emotional issues. understand that your child is their own being. And as Rich was saying, from my perspective, I know that they have lived thousands of lifetimes and they are only a soul in that little aged body. So I never was with my kids as I'm the parent and you're the child. That energy didn't exist with me. It was an equanimity from the very beginning. It was like, hey, I agreed to be your guardian and you're going to really kick my ass and I'm going to be here. I'm just going to repeatedly be here. But I never didn't understand that truth for me. So if as parents we can take our own responsibility and heal our traumas, because we all have little girl, little boy traumas that are inside our grown-up bodies, then we can just celebrate our children and let them be who they are. And somebody asked me once, well, what are your goals for your children? And I kind of laughed. I was like, well, I don't know. They're going to tell, I'm here to support them. I'm their support team.
You don't have any KPIs in line for them?
No. So, and the thing is that what I've learned is that what I wanted to cultivate in Mathis was a strong sense of knowing who she was. Because if you know your voice, then you know who you are, and then you can fulfill your life. So she started painting at a very young age. And when I saw this, because I'm an artist, I got her 4x8 foot canvas right away. She was 3 and I got her a huge piece. And I was so surprised because she just looked at it for about a minute and then laid the whole thing out like in a split second. Like no thought of what am I going to paint? That didn't even come into the picture. We met you guys shortly after that. She had started this sort of Jackson Pollock-esque style, right? And you guys sent an email and you were like, we really want to buy a piece of Mathis's art. And so I told her, I said, they sent an email and they want to know, what your rate is. And she was like, how old was she? Like 7 or something? Yeah. So she says, what should I say? And I said, well, I think you should ask them to make you an offer. And she goes, okay.
Negotiation skills 101.
So she goes,
never be the first to put a number on the table.
So she goes, okay. She said, okay, that sounds good. So then I sent the email. I'm like, make her an offer. She's into it. Make her an offer, right? So you guys so generously sent how's $350? So I remember she was sleeping in her bunk bed and I walked into her room and I said, Mathis, you got an offer. And she woke up and she said, yeah. She goes, what's the offer? What's the offer? And I said, it's $350. And she goes, oh, that's a good offer. And I said, yeah, it is. It's a really good offer. And I go, isn't that great? I go, congratulations, honey. Is that great? So I turn to walk away and then I hear her say, wait, who pays the shipping? And I was like, she's such an entrepreneur, from a little kid, so that I laughed my head off, So
you're like, she's going to be fine.
So later, yeah, she's going to be fine. So I took the approach that I didn't teach my kids to read. I tried flashcards once, and she threw the box at my head, which was the clue. So I didn't teach them to read. I didn't teach them to write. I didn't do the little dots and go, this is how you make an R. And what I found is I just knew, I was like, well, she's going to teach herself to read when she wants to. And she did. She taught herself to read about age 7. And I'm just going to tell you this quick story because she then grew up, got older. She left art and went and chose hockey for a couple years, which I was like, what are you doing? But I was like, okay. So she was doing that. And then she just came home one day and she was like, I'm going to paint again and I'm going to apply for this premier art school in LA. It's called LACSA. And she worked 1.5 years on her portfolio. And she was accepted last month, 28 kids out of 200 kids for her entire high school. And now Rich and my life are totally going to change because the commute is 2 hours each way. So we have to rent an apartment near that and we're going to have to figure it out. But we told her, if you get in, you deserve it and we'll support you in that. And you guys know. And so I want to thank you for being these, really sort of sponsors, or you were like patrons of this artist. And yeah, hang on to that piece.
Oh, totally. We still have it. We've seen it. It's in our apartment.
Well, and Mathis was delighted that she got credited in that apartment therapy piece on your apartment. It was like, that her painting was noted for being
huge shocking point.
I love it. Well, now we have an investment. We have to make sure that investment. Yeah. So something you're curious, when your daughter threw something at your head, something where duck. But like, what do you do? So Ellie now is like walking around and she's decided that when we have like tons of plants in our apartment, she's decided there's this one plant, which actually like is not good for her, that she goes over to her and smiles and like starts attacking the plant and trying to rip it. And we're like, Ellie, no, we're trying to like figure out what's the balance of like, what do you do when you're trying to teach the child, like, that's not a good thing, not a good thing and probably unsafe. And you're trying to be firm. And we're like, how do we have this conversation? Like, what does that look like for you guys? Like in the early, I think parents struggle with that in wellness. It's like you're trying to be conscious, whatever that, mostly conscious is what we say, but you're trying to be firm. You're trying to teach. What does that look like for you guys?
I think it's very important to understand that every child is different. And I want to say I trust mothers and fathers to know their children. So, it depends on the being, like what is the personality? Like for instance, with Mathis, she had a lot of, she was kind of on the spectrum. I mean, definitely on the spectrum. I never had her diagnosed, but she had a lot of very bizarre things going on, and which resulted in her being attached to my leg for 8 whole years. She never slept in her own room. Even though we tried millions of times, like taking her to get her to like set up a room and pick her own sheets. And Rich would just inevitably end up sleeping in princess sheets because she never ended up there. But with Mathis, what I discovered is she was so intense and didn't like so much of the world. Like we would go into a restaurant and she would refuse to sit at the table where the hostess was sitting us, for instance. And in the beginning, I was like, no, you're going to sit. I'm going to do the control thing and you're going to sit where I tell you to sit. And then it would be like this crazy, screaming fit, crazy stuff. And I was like, wait, this is not working. So what I did is I set her life up to tell her yes as much as possible, because she had a lot of stuff she was dealing with and the world was going to tell her no. So I had a meeting, talked to her brothers and sisters, her sister wasn't there at the time, and Rich, and I was like, she's not wired like we are. So please only try to say yes to her, because I didn't want to make a groove of no. So I don't know Ellie enough yet to really give you the advice, but you have a couple options. You could remove the plant. And if it really could be dangerous and she's eating it, you could let her destroy it and see how that feels to her and just not let her eat it. Watch her hands, but just let her do it. You could try to hold a boundary with a consequence, although with a baby that little, the consequence is kind of difficult, right?
It's dangerous.
It's kind of dangerous. And, so I don't really think that's going to go well. That's what I'm saying. I don't think that's necessarily going to go very well. So again, it's like she's exploring, she's learning, right? And so try to create an environment where she can learn freely and where you can say yes to her, right. And let her learn about morals and ethics maybe later. I mean, there is a place for no. And let me be very clear. I mean, you can tell by listening to my voice, I'm not a placid, soft wallflower mother. And Mathis required me. She was born an adolescent. So we've been doing this adolescent thing for a long time. She required me to say no. And, I can be intense. Like I'm not like, oh, walk all over me, you're amazing.
Yeah, I mean, conscious parenting doesn't mean like just allowing the child to do what the child wants to do. Like conscious parenting is about knowing when to say no and being firm in your resolve and unwavering in that regard, but doing it coming from a neutral place. It's not the saying no, it's the energy that you carry into the saying no. So if it's very emotionally charged and it's upsetting to you and it creates a lot of frenzied kind of, reactionary behavior in you as parents, then that is an imbalanced response. So it's the firm no, it's creating the boundary, the healthy boundary, but doing it from a dispassionate, neutral place.
Yeah, and that's true. And it will happen because you will lose your shit and you will, okay, so just it happens to all of us. But I think for me, what's worked for me is immediately taking responsibility. I apologize to my kids. I own it when I'm out of line. I take responsibility. And this is another thing that I would like to share as well. Don't think that as parents, if you present a picture to your child that you are perfect, that is going to be helpful for them. As parents, we think that we have to present this kind of view that we have it all together, we have it all figured out because we're the parent. Like, for instance, I'll use this example just with my own older boys. I have a history of drug use. I used drugs in high school. It was a recreational period of mine, and I've literally been drug-free since I was 17. But I made the decision to tell my children honestly that is the life that I had, that's the experience that I had. And a lot of my friends or people in the community were like shocked, like, well, you told them that about you? Like, why would you do that? You want to make sure that they look up to you or whatever. And I feel that to be very authentic and also very scary. And when I told my boys that I had used drugs and told them, what had happened and that I no longer, they know I don't now. Obviously, we live like a very spiritual life and clean life. Tyler was exhaling. They were like, I'm so relieved. They were relieved because they were seeing a different thing happening at school or in their community, and then to know that their mom was not so untouchable. Because if we create that condition when your child does make a decision or use a drug or fall or whatever the situation is, they will never want to disappoint you and they will never tell you. It's too much. It's too painful. So you're creating a separation. Once again, we were talking about vegan diet and how that judgment. So if you create this greater than thou situation and you are not raw and transparent with your flaws to your kids and your journeys and how you work through that, you will create a separation from them.
So my last question. So as a couple, if you could go back in time in the early days of your relationship, I usually individualize this question, and usually the question is, advice for your 20-something self. But since, we've got you as a unit and the amazing lifestyle, life, family, and book you've created together as a unit. So if you could go back in time when it was the early days of Rich and Julie and give yourselves advice as a couple, as a unit, and your relationship, what advice would that be?
That's a good one.
Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to answer that.
Yeah. It's interesting because I could pick out certain things that I wish didn't happen and try to identify maybe a healthier way of navigating some of the things that we went through. But quite honestly, I don't know that I would change anything because it's all of those experiences and the difficulties and the challenges and the imperfect way in which, I tried to, just speaking for myself, tackle things that were difficult that has allowed us to do what we get to do today. And I wouldn't want to deprive myself of those experiences. Like Julie said, it's that burning in the fire. It's that, that dismantling that we went through that really made us and me personally confront myself in a way that I wouldn't have otherwise. So I wouldn't want to spare myself of those challenges. The only thing maybe I would say is I would tell myself in that stage to perhaps exhale and be more gentle on myself and to maybe relax a little bit more, that it's going to be okay.
That was beautiful. Yeah, no regrets. It's a hard question. I would just say the only thing that comes into my feeling is to love myself more.
I love that. Julie and Rich, we love you guys. We feel you're part of the extended family. We've known you for 8 years. We love you. We love your family. We love everything you do. It's been amazing to be on this journey. And everyone listening, The Plant Power Way Italia. You got to check it out. Amazing book from, I'm sure what you could gather is really, really special people. And this book is a small sneak peek into all the magic they create, which will fill your belly in a really yummy and delicious way. So check out the book, check out everything they do, their podcasts, their books, their classes on MindBodyGreen, whatever these guys do. It's amazing. Check it out. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, you guys.
Love you guys.
Love you
Thanks
too.
so much.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Namaste.